Hello and welcome to this full tutorial. We're going to go painting a couple of boats, and I'm actually starting the painting with some Griffin, Winsor & Newton Griffin fast drying oils. So I'll do the underpainting and this will be dry within 24 hours, and then I'll then do the second part of the painting with normal oils, which is various makes, which I have a little bit of linseed oil in to make them nice and buttery. So hope you enjoy this full video. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and check out the link in the description to my website if you fancy watching lots and lots of videos like this with the reference images and traceables, etc. To have a go at painting along with me. Also, we have a live stream, a couple of live streams each month on membership where we can obviously talk in person as well. So hopefully you enjoy the video. Let's get on with it. And I wasn't sure whether this would actually lift the pencil marks off or not, but I think it'll be okay. So my drawing should still be there. And what I quite like about this reference, which I did on my watercolour as well, there's a bit of a mist in here that you can't see with the sky and the sea ends. So we'll carry that theme on. And now it steers towards blue slightly. So let's take another brush. And lighting value. So my aim, I suppose, is to get the right colours and tonal values that you could do this just in one tone. That my other way I would do something like this would be just to use burnt umber, a bit of white maybe, and just put it in tonally. And when I come to do the full painting, or paint over this, any bits I miss, instead of having white paper showing through, I'll have these colours underneath. So, and maybe some thin areas of paint alongside some thicker areas of paint. I think that can look quite good. This is a mid-journey image that I'm using, my reference. AI is taking the world by storm. I know it upsets a lot of people, but I've recently started using AI to help me learn French. What a great tool. I can actually have a conversation with ChatGPT and it'll give me some feedback to what my pronunciation was and so on. So, a good tool if you use it the right way. And it'll never replace human interaction and actually doing this painting. So, it really doesn't bother me using AI to come up with images and stuff, because this is what I like doing, putting paint on the panel. And if I can come across images that are inspiring and great to teach and so on, that's a winner for me. So there's the sea. I've got that colour there. Got this distant hill. In areas like this, I might leave. That could be the finished painting there, and just get the boat quite detailed. Here is what I want to achieve. Detailed but loose. That fine line, isn't it? And by doing this also, I'm getting a good idea of where things are and an idea of what's going on in the scene. Obviously, having painted it in watercolor already, that's given me a good idea. And I've got a soft edge in there. Let that just melt into the distance. Paint around the top of that boat. I think my difficulty will be not getting carried away and trying to just start finishing the painting. Oh yeah, so that's the sea and the sky done, nice and quick. And I'll be going over this, putting in some nice brushwork and so on. I think I'll probably, when I come to paint it, I'll paint the boats first, because I may not actually need to do a great deal to the the rest of it. And we've got the C in there. I need to be a bit more careful now to go around perhaps some shapes. And like I say, there's so many ways you can paint. You know, don't think that you have to follow one particular method. I use lots of different methods all the time. If you follow my channel, sometimes I'm doing this, sometimes I'm doing that. I find it keeps it interesting. So let's get some darks in. Well, let's get some red in. That I'm not going to use a fast drying oil because I really want that boat to be red. I've got some Scarlet Lake here, which is a Michael Harding paint, really highly pigmented. I'm lucky, I put that down, I dip that into the blue, which I don't want. Let's clean this brush off. If you need a clean brush, because I generally just have my brushes sitting in oil, I'll probably use a bit of white spirit there just to give the brush a good clean off. I avoid using white spirit or turpentine to clean my brushes because it does destroy your brushes very quickly. But if you want a clean brush, you need to do that. I'll show you my oil well. Those who've been watching for a while know all about that. But that's where I generally keep my, show it on that camera easier. That's where I keep my brushes, submersed in oil, so I don't need to wash them. So after I finish painting, I just put them in there. And then they're not going to get oily. The handles get a bit sticky. And then when the oil gets really contaminated, because I'm a bit of a skinflint, I put the oil in a jar, half oil and half water, give it a good shake up, and then in a few weeks you're left with the clean oil at the top and then water and paint sediment at the bottom, so you can just pour that clean oil off and use it again. There we go, that's the tip for today. So this side of the boat is going to be really red. I will use a little bit of mineral spirits just to make that flow. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to that. Make it more of a fiery Ferrari red, maybe. So I'll go quiet when I try to do something where I need to concentrate. Can't talk and paint at the same time. So I've got to concentrate what I'm doing. So the reason why I quite like to paint on a white canvas sometimes is when you wipe it back, for instance, you reveal a lot of that light to come through. That could be a little bit of texture on the side of the boat or something like that. Just put the lid back on that paint before it dries up. A little bit of red on the top of that boat as well. So this part here won't be dry by Friday. That'll probably take quite a while for that red to dry. That's fine. Oh no, that's still damp. But I probably won't do a lot with that, just keep that nice and red, that boat. Let's put some darks next to it. So my red, blue and yellow all together. Eventually we'll get green, but I can add red, which will give me my burnt umber. So I didn't need to squeeze out burnt umber, and I can steer it towards blue or whatever we want to do. So I'm going to have a nice strong dark down here. And that's actually going to have that side of the boat in shadow. Bit of texture there. Steer it towards blue. There's the reflection there. And this is, what's the point in doing an underpainting? Because you could just put the right colours in the right place and just do the painting from start to finish. It's great in the fact that if I make a mistake, I can just rub it off and correct it. So if you're struggling with the method of direct painting or alla prima because you make mistakes and you get lost, try an underpainting, perhaps just use one color and then build up confidence to then just do a painting from start to finish. I think that's a good method. Hello, message. Hello, Robert. It's great you are doing the painting and sharing us with us. Thanks. Yep, no problem at all. So I'm just going to do the underpainting on this demo. I'll need to let this dry, and then I shall have a go at something else if we've got time, which we should do because I don't think this is going to take particularly long. And the idea with these live streams is to sort of share some other parts of the process. When I come to do my YouTube videos, they're supposed to be engaging and straight off the off, keep you engaged and so on. So, I leave out a lot of the drawing stage and so on because, people just scroll away. So, I suppose with the live streams, watch it if you want to watch it. You don't if you don't. So I've got memberships on my website. It's a chance for me to plug my website, doing these live streams as well. That if you want more content, more interaction, we have a members forum so you can chat with other members, share your artwork and so on. The boat off in the distance there doesn't need a great deal of detail. Mistiness there from the distance. Because the reason why you don't want a lot of detail on that boat off in the distance is because we want to put the main focus on this one. And I've been saying this a lot recently. You do need to work on your drawing. And if you don't want to work on your drawing, just trace. There's nothing wrong with that. If you just don't like drawing, just trace. But you need an accurate drawing if you want it to look good. And that's my opinion. Obviously, you might be quite happy with a quirky drawing, and sometimes it can be quite good. But I think most of the time, if your perspective's off and so on, it doesn't look good. And you may well be struggling to find out why your painting isn't working. And it may be that everything's fine. It's just your drawing was always off, and it was always going to be a problem, the painting. But you can fix that. You can learn to draw, spend time doing that, or just trace. I tend to these days do a bit of tracing and a bit of freehand. Find a happy balance. By making much less of this, it'll put focus on the main boat. Let's just use a bit of white. And I do enjoy drawing. So for me, it's a speed thing. I like to get lots of demos out because I'm a believer in quantity. Some people like to do perhaps quality over quantity, but I think studies show you learn better with quantity. I think if I just put out one video a month that was real high quality demo from start to finish, I think I would have more success by putting out lots of videos. And you forgive me if I make a mistake or don't get something quite right, which I do occasionally. And you've just got to say to yourself, I don't care. I'm just going to do my painting, and it is what it is. And take the pressure off yourself. Right. I've done it on in the early days when I didn't do live streams. When I messed up my demo, I could just delete it and then do it again. But obviously on these live streams, I can't do that. So once it's out there, it's out there. But, I've messed up on some members' live streams. Watercolour a few weeks back. Did a demo. Also, it wasn't a complete disaster, but it didn't quite turn out how I wanted it to. But nothing happened. Members forgave me. one of the demos was good, one of them wasn't so good. But I think there's a lot to learn from our mistakes. So I'm literally just colouring in, really. It's there's nothing fancy about this. I'm just putting in the dark shapes in the right place, and then once this is dried, when I'm doing my painting, if you make a mistake, you can just wipe it back to this if you need to. I think that's the other benefit of having an underpainting that is dried. That if you get lost, you can just wipe off what you've done and get back to this stage. So, shadow underneath the boat. We've got some red in there as well. So this red probably is a little bit oversaturated. So we will dull that down a little bit in the next layers. By saturation, I just mean how intense that colour is. That there's lots of fancy words in the world of art. That if you hear the word hue, that just refers to the colour. So this is red. That's the hue of this colour. So I just use colour because everyone knows what that means. Value is the tone. That is a darker value than that. This is a darker value at the front of the boat here in the shadow. That just refers to how light or dark the colour is in simple terms. Chroma. Again, that's just how intense the colour is. That's a high chroma red. This is perhaps a low chroma red. But you don't need to know all that. You just need to know that's a brighter red, that's a duller red. So we've got reflection under there. And the best way I found with reflections is to keep it simple. So this is very thin, the paint on here. There's not a lot of, well, there's no thick paint on here, which I don't want any thick paint. That's going to come on the next layers. So and if I want to just lift out a little bit of paint off in the distance there, that's a house off in the distance. Again, that may well be final painting. And a bit of light across the sea there, increase the contrast. And this is why I quite like the oil primed surfaces, that you can wipe off almost back to the white, bit staining yellow, scratch out those, useful for later. So in your underpainting, just think about what's going to be useful. All these lines I'll put on afterwards at the end of the painting, which I'll do when this is dried. Which will be easier to do so. I suppose I want to kind of get the background finished, really, because when I put all this detail on here, it'll be easier to do when it's dried. So I'll have a think to see whether that background is finished. A nice intense red. Will that sky be okay as it is? I think probably would be okay. I think. Hello, Kerry's Creations. So I think that's okay. I'm quite happy with that for my underpainting. So I'll finish that on Friday's oil live stream, which will be on my membership tier 2. It's free for tier 2 members, the live stream and the workshop. So it's not, you pay for your tier 2, so you can say it's not free. But so stop playing about with that. That's the underpainting done. That's fine. I'm happy with that. So nice and close to the action. So it's all just a little bit messy at the moment. So I shall try and tidy up a little bit. So the colours I've got out on here are titanium white, my primary yellow, Design crimson, ultramarine blue, and that, to be fair, would have been enough. Really, I couldn't see anywhere else where I'd need any other colours than there, but I felt I probably should have more colours, so I put a burnt sienna out, which is convenience really. That'll help me to create a dark. So I think I'll establish the darks will be a good idea, and I'll just look at edges. I really want this boat to stand out, this boat here. The other one I'm quite happy to just lose. So I can see here where a few angles aren't quite right, so I can sort that out. And then we've got nice sharp edges there. And I need to make sure I make less of this boat off in the distance. So I can do that by edges. And by that I mean I'm going to lose the this area, so you can't really define. It's not going to be defined. All of this boat is going to be defined, but this one off in the distance isn't going to be. So I'm actually using a nylon brush here, just a small round, to a smaller brush. I haven't really got many small brushes. I need to get some small brushes, I think, for doing detailed stuff. So I'm just putting in these darks where I see, and I'll probably end up eliminating some of this detail. So these windows, don't make too much of them. And I'll put that railing in on the boat, which, and again, I just chisel the brush. I just do this. It's a round brush, not a flat brush, but I can make it flat by just doing that, and then you get like almost like a chisel edge, and then you can do some really fine detail with that, but not really detail. And I'm going to break that line up so it's not a solid line. And I lost my drawing where all this stuff is on the top of the boat, but again, it's not that important to be 100% accurate, and if anything, make a little bit less of it. So notice there I haven't done a solid line there, and that's on purpose, because if it's, you know, quite far away, it's going to be less detailed, and we don't want it to compete with this one. And I'm not quite sure what we're going to do with the sky as yet. Might end up just leaving it as it is. And we don't need to put all of the details on the boat there. I'm sure to an expert they'll be able to see what's wrong with it, but it looks like a boat to me. So I'm just going to pick up some blue and just a small touch of that yellow to make a dark bluey green, and then I shall paint into there. And then just a little bit of white as it comes around there, and I'll just wipe that brush off to get most of the paint off of there, and then I'll just manipulate that a little bit, and even just use my finger just to pull that paint into there, just make it look obviously a boat curves, so you've got all the transitions from light to dark in there. And then a bit of burnt sienna. at the top there. Again, just let that mix into there. And sort those out. And a bit of red. See if we can get away without using cadmium red. Not that I've got a problem with that, but you can get quite a nice red with just using the yellow and the alizarin crimson. More of a muted red for off in the distance here. But again, we don't want a bright red to compete with that boat. And then just mix a little bit of that dark mix into there. Because again, the side of the boat here is in shadow. And again, I'll just make that brush to a little bit of a chiseled edge and just put a dark in there. And that just anchors the boat to the ground. Just sort out that edge of the boat. Again, a bit of blue, a bit of yellow. I'm going to paint the reflection now. So that's the same as what's going on above. Just lightly touch on there. And then it's slightly darker in here. So I'm just looking at shapes, really. I see a dark shape in here. And it's all soft. It's lost edges in here. And if anything, the more we leave to the imagination in here, the better. So I'm actually going to purposely mess it up a little bit. We'll put in the... So I tend to put the reflections in. I go from the top and just have a look and just run my hand down there and then do the same there. It helps to get them in the right position. That's fine. And then there's just stuff on the back of the boat, which I've got no idea what it is, but it's an opportunity to put a dark here and just sharpen that edge up a little bit. And it's a little bit too dark, so I just add a bit of that grey mix there. It's just random shapes on there. Back into that dark, which we can again sharpen up the side of the boat there. So we've got light coming in from the side here. So the side of the boat here is probably going to have a bit of light on it. So I shall take another brush and perhaps just take a little bit of white, small touch of yellow. And just lay that paint on there. And this would be in shadow at the side of the boat here, so we can just grey that off a little bit. Just make a little bit less of that. I've got a hair come off that brush. So that's probably okay for that that boat. I shall just run a light grey across the top of there for now. And same on there. So we zoom out, it's sharpened that boat up now, so it looks like a boat, but we still don't really have a lot of detail on it. So we'll see what it looks like compared to the other boat. Work on this one now. So probably again a good idea to put the dark around the boat. So now I've used that brush for white, I probably will struggle to get a strong dark for that, so I'll need another brush which I'll keep for my darks. Again, the blue, brown, create a nice dark. And I'm using these downward strokes because it will look darker if I do the side strokes, although this is quite a smooth panel. It will catch the light a little bit, but maybe a combination of both. And part of this, what I'm doing here, is to not lose my drawing. But I want this to be fairly detailed, this painting. Just leave a little bit of a gap. Maybe that might be enough what's there to be the little ripples along the edge there. And now horizontal marks. And this bristle brush is doing a good job creating that effect. So we need to paint the boat into the wall to make it look like it's part of the whole scene. So just a bit of alizarin crimson with that dark mix on there. We'll start with that. So hopefully you're enjoying this video. Please do hit that like and subscribe. Don't forget the notification bell so you don't miss any videos, and don't forget to check out those links in the description if you want to paint along with me, perhaps on a live stream, and have access to a huge library of full demonstrations like this. And there is a little bit of reflected light on the side of that boat, so I'll just leave it a little bit lighter at the top there. Maybe even just wipe it back to, so I can always come back and adjust that if need be. The reflection underneath is doing the same. And what we're achieving here is contrast, light against dark. And that's what makes paintings look really good, contrast. So if we can increase that or make sure it's there, it's what's going to look good. And again, we need the boat to look like it's actually sitting in the water. So there's a dark edge under there. And we've got a little bit of detail on the side of the boat. Smaller brush. Again, that can be a broken line. Doesn't have to be solid. I quite like sometimes doing something a little bit detailed. But most of the time I'm doing stuff very loose with big brushes. And then there's a little bit of light hitting the top of that rib, whatever it's called, on the side of the boat. I assume that's there to stop it bashing the side of the boat. So just adding a little bit of a highlight on the top there. And there's another bit of detail on the boat there, but probably make less of that. And it's almost a little bit of a shadow in the middle here. A bit of yellow and the brown mixed in with that white there, which will give me a yellow ochre sort of colour. So there's a bit of wear and tear on the boat down here, which I'll just almost dry brush that on there. So maybe that's just a bit of seaweed or something on there. And obviously whatever happens above will be happening underneath, but a little bit less. And the same here. So it's quite accurate, these mid-journey images sometimes, that this is where the boat, the water and the air mix. This is where all the perhaps the corrosion and everything happens. And I'll go a little bit lighter and more yellow. Just dab a little bit of detail on there. So again, we're increasing the contrast. If I put a little bit of that light yellow creamy mix next to the dark, we increase the contrast there. And rather than have just one solid red boat, it'll add a bit more character. We've got all this rust and whatever else on here. So we can always come back to that. So needs to be darker under the boat. So all the time just looking to see my painting compared to the reference. You know, I haven't got it as dark there as it is here. So I can increase make it dark in there. So let's get some cadmium red out. I've got some just normal Winsor & Newton cadmium red there. That'll do the job. I think probably it's a little bit on the red side, that boat, in places. I'll leave some areas red, but we can just tone it down a little bit. Maybe mix a bit of the alizarin crimson and again, take care of edges. We want a fairly crisp edge along the top here. And I suppose doing the underpainting, the idea was that I would not need to paint over the whole of the boat, and I'll be left with the red underneath, which is fine. You know, it gives that look that it's got some wear and tear. And again, the angle of the boat, it curves, so it's going to be receiving light in different proportions. So also remember, I've just put some white on here, so that will turn pink if I put the red into that, so which I don't want. And there probably would be a little bit of a shadow under that line there, which is not on the image, so we can just put that in. That looks fine. No, don't want to overwork it. And let's go for a bit of red on its own. Let's just add some yellow in. If I add white to the red, it'll go pink. So if I want to make it more of a fiery orangey red, I need to add yellow. It's not doing a great deal there. So that's fine, we can come back to that. So let's go back to that thin brush and put some of the detail on the top of the boat. Perhaps I should have done that first, and then I could have rested my hand on the panel there, but I'll use my stick. So just back to a dark. And if your paint is a little bit stiff and you're finding it's difficult to get the paint to come off to do these fine lines, just add a little bit of linseed oil. That's all you need to do. So I can just rest my hand on a stick. If I just zoom out and show you what I'm doing. Ooh. So I've just got this, it's just a dowel from the hardware shop, 10mm dowel, and I just rest it on my board there, and then I can rest my hand on here, and I'm just moving my hand rather than trying to draw a straight line like this, which you can do, but it's a bit steadier that way. So if I have a look to see roughly where that line is there, it's about there, and that comes down. Just about see my drawing a little bit, and then just keep reloading the brush and then flatten the brush. And that's quite nice. So that crosses through the boat there. I assume this is a fishing boat of the sort. And we've got these aerials. Some kind of radar system, I assume. Just a dark shape there. And now maybe there's boats on the other side as well, which these verticals could be from, but it's just breaking up the sky a little bit. That's fine. I'll do the railing on the front here while I got my stick out. It's just a dark something there, and maybe just darken that a little bit. And there's a little bit there where the probably the name of the boat would go. Again, it's just breaking it up a little bit, and break from the detail stuff. So we'll put some light area on the side of this boat again to make it. Get rid of my stick now for the moment. A bit of white, the yellow, and I don't mind having a bit of wet into wet painting going on here because it will just add a bit more character to it, I think. Light on the side there, and I think we probably could do with just darkening the front of that boat ever so slightly. So I'll just mix some grey into there. And there probably would be a little bit of a dark edge underneath that the house of the boat there, where there's going to be a bit of a shadow under there. We can just soften that ever so slightly. Take a bit of red. So the windows need firming up because they're just too loose at the moment. We need some sharp edges that if you have soft edges everywhere, it has nothing for the eye to grab a hold of. So we do need to have some crisp edge, particularly an area where you want to draw attention to. We've got a lot of soft edges in the boat off in the distance, so that's fine because we don't want to draw attention to that one. But on this one, we want to draw the attention. So let's have a nice strong dark. So you can draw the viewer's eye by contrast and edges. And these windows don't need to be perfect. Add a bit of character. And I think the secret is don't make them all the same. I have some windows that are just dark inside, some windows that have got some light coming through. Just going to darken the front of that boat just a little bit more. Don't get carried away with details as yet. It's not at that stage. Just pick up some of that cadmium red and just sort out that edge there a little bit. Again, we're increasing the contrast of light and dark. And then there's all that stuff on the back of the boat, which is just abstract shapes. We can sharpen up these a little bit as well. It's not making sense here at the moment because there's no edges, or it just needs a sharp edge there. So instantly when you put that there, it just all comes together, makes sense. I've got no idea what these are. It's just another dark shape there. Looks like it's some kind of hoop. And I think I found, when I started just looking at shapes and, is the shape light, dark? Is it highly saturated? What color is it? And so on. And just ask these questions. It all becomes much easier when you're trying to paint things that you can't see the shapes particularly well. And that's all they are. There's just shapes here, random shapes. And again, just tidy that up. A bit more red. Looks like they've just got containers or something on there. And where we've got lots of darks there, we can put some light areas as well. There's going to be, say, that rope or whatever that is, a pole coming across there. Again, adding contrast. Bit of light hitting the top of whatever that is. Assume that's some kind of arm to lift things out of the sea. And it's going to be darker underneath. So I need to work on these reflections a little bit underneath here. And what I might do is this reflection's just gone a little bit too far past this way. And it might be quite nice just to increase the contrast and make this lighter. Let's just try that. And you want to make this look like a shiny surface, the water. And again, by doing the underpainting, anything I've got left on here or underneath will serve as the painting. Again, that angle's not quite right, so we can just fix it with that. And make less of that. I think it'd be a good idea to put the details of the reflections first before we start worrying about detail. Let's get a clean bit of tissue in my hand. It's always good to step back, just see if you're on track. It's starting to look a little bit more detailed, because that's where we'll be viewing the painting from. Let's move the camera down a fraction. So I can see there's the reflections of those windows, but I find the best way to keep reflections, which is the same in the image here, is to simplify them, just make less of them. Again, just look at what's above. It's going to be movement on the water. Just follow that line down. Another one there. And that railing as well. And we can just suggest a little movement in the water there. And also this is much easier to do when this is dried. That when the canvas has got a load of white paint on there, it's very difficult to get these darks and these marks. Move that a little bit. Again, I'm using quite a small brush. I'm going quite dark with these because I want the contrast. think I shall put a darker edge along the bottom here. Quite often on boats, as the boat meets the water, there's a little dark edge there. The important thing is to have it looking realistically like it is actually sitting in the water. That's the challenge, I think, that and you do that again by the edges. You can't see where the boat finishes and the water starts. Too much white. Let's add more yellow into there. Brown. Probably enough detail. So I'll have a little rest from this boat and perhaps have a look at this boat here. That we've got the light coming in this way. So there's a bit of light hitting the side of that boat, but just a little flick like that is fine. While I've got a light mix, let's do the top of that. Back with a smaller brush. A little bit of detail on the right. Let's move the camera up. So this tie-off point here, quite nice to get that looking half reasonable. There's a dark under there. There's actually a rope tied around it as well. If we take some of that white and mix it in with the blue, we'll get that polished metal look. There. And we'll go with these ropes. There's a rope tied around there. Again, we just need a little dark under that rope. And I think I'll use some of that blue and white for the chain. But zoom out a bit, and I think some of that blue would be quite nice for the edge of the water there as well. So there's a rope or a chain going across there. One coming down there. And like we did on the boat, we can have a little bit of a ripple of water along the edge there, which I'm using blue just to cool it off in the shadow. When I say blue, it's just a very greyed blue. Just a few little ripples in there. And I'm going to put a little bit of, again, maybe suggest a bit of movement on there and just break that up a little bit. Not get carried away. Just a little bit of a dark edge under the here. Again, it's also going to just define that a little bit more. Let's go back to the red and the yellow for the reflection under here. So now when you're at this sort of stage, we're looking for things to do. We're probably not that far away. Maybe just messing up a few little edges. So maybe I was trying to suggest some of these clouds in the water here. Quite nice to put a little bit more paint on the panel here. So we probably could go a little bit lighter with the sky. Again, just a bit of creamy colour, so white and I picked up a little bit of red and yellow that's mixed in that lot. So just going to drag it across there. Straighten the camera up a little bit. Ooh, what happens when you pick up a bit of blue on your brush? Obviously meant to go more blue over that side. So I'll just go around those bits there. So obviously if this panel was white, then that might be an issue, but as we've got that yellow, it'll give it a bit of a glow. If that warmth is coming through, we'll go slightly warmer again. And now we've got pink and that yellow coming through. And I'll just add some more white and just let it disappear. Again, I can just sharpen that up or sort the shape out, but maybe a soft edge. Send it back, and same over here. And let's just mist that up. It just disappears off into the sky. That line there. Now we could make a little bit more of that distant hill there. The mass there with the houses. It all needs to be soft and disappearing off into the the distance there. I'm not loading the brush up here because I don't really want to put too much paint on, because it's difficult to go around all these things here. I suppose I could, with a smaller brush, just work up to there a little bit more, or just wait for it to dry and then I could just touch up those if I wanted to. But it's what makes oil painting tricky. And then we've got the sea and soft edge here. You can't see whether that land and the sea starts. Just a little bit of dry brush in there, that's fine. Again, increase the contrast to make that stand out a little bit more. So let's have a go with these clouds. So it's not very dark at all in here, it's just very subtle. So just do a little color test. Just want a grey mix, really, a bluey grey. She steers more towards green, but I suppose I've perhaps changed my sky a little bit to make it a little bit warmer, so just go with that. So again, I'm just going to look at shapes. I see an abstract shape there, which is the dark part between the clouds above. Same here. There it goes, slightly more blue. That's probably not too bad. And I'm just mixing into all these other colours here, just creating variations of these greys. And we want soft edges in here, so just take a bit of white, again make a creamy mix. They're using horizontal marks here to create that illusion of the water, and just paint one edge into the other edge. Reloading that brush, pull that into there a little bit. And again, we can increase the contrast and go lighter in there. And do a little bit of blending. I've just got a household soft brush there. Try that. See what that does. Soften that a little bit. Too soft. Take a cleanish bristle brush. soften those reflections off in the distance there, and maybe have slightly crisper ones here. Let's be careful I don't lose all that detail I put in, but I suppose I could always put it back in if I do. But there's not a lot of paint on here. This is really just scumbling a very thin layer of paint on there. Let's pick up some of that paint and just get rid of some of that yellow on there. And then just look at it and think, is there anything you can do to improve it? Is it going to just overwork it? I think they were quite good when they were crisp. I'll put that back in. I've lost that dark there, and that's what happens when you start scrubbing about with things. You lose your darks and so on, so just may need to put a few things back in. And just go a little bit lighter with these ones. And these are quite an important part of the painting, these ripples or the reflections in the ripples there. That looks quite nice. And we can also just maybe just suggest one or two ripples there in the water. I would do that in watercolor, certainly. Get bigger as they get closer to us. And something else I would do in watercolor, which I shall just try, is I quite often would go darker at the base of the sea here, probably with a purple like that. And what that does, it will just give it a little bit more depth. And just to tally that up, we could go a little bit darker up the top here as well. Generally speaking, the sky is darker at the top because it's closer to us. This is the bit further away is further away. Again, we want it soft. So a lot less brush marks in this painting than normal. A few hairs falling off that. That's fit for the bin, that brush. So you just let them dry and then take them off. And just finally, maybe some seagulls. I'm just flicking the brush on there just to create that illusion. And you could put a figure on, But I shall just do a silhouette of a figure on the boat. Again, if we do a portrait of someone, it'll still the show. So I think on my watercolor version, I put a figure here, I think. So there's his head, shoulders. Could give him some overalls. Take a bit of blue and white. And he never goes anywhere without his trusty cap. And that's sort of an hour into it, so probably I would leave it there, step back from it, take away the reference picture. We're not comparing it. I should see if I can find the starting picture where we were, just to have a look at the before and after. Just find that picture. So that's where we started. So we've not changed it huge amounts really. That you know, everything was there. Obviously, it was just all a bit rough really. That by adding the darks under the boat and so on, and the little bit of detail along here, making the front of the boat slightly darker, that makes it look more three-dimensional. And literally, as soon as you add all these bits onto the scene, it all then starts looking detailed, but it's not. But so there we go. So that's another way of working, by say doing an underpainting with fast drying oils. I used to use acrylics, you know, did for a long time. So feel free to unmute your microphones. So a different sort of style of painting almost is less brushworky. Let's have a little zoom in. But again, there's still no detail as such. It's just sharpened up a few edges. I think the important thing is to keep that boat off in the distance, less detailed than the one in the foreground. Draw more attention onto that one. Yeah, it does help having a figure. Yeah, and I find with the figures that just a dot for the head, the shape of the body, forget arms and legs. You know, you don't need those. And you know, it's believable that he's looking down on the boat or whatever. He's about to get on it or do something. And that little trick of putting the sort of the darker bluey purple in the foreground here, that really does make it look like water. And that's something I've learned from watercolor. Really, it's you know, I suppose it concentrates the light here more. But yeah, definitely keep the reflections simple. That's much better. And having this softness off in the distance again puts more focus on the sharp edges here. there you go. Good luck with your painting. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, and if you enjoyed this video, you'll love this one.